Hello, my LGBT cuties, and welcome back to another episode of A Jaded Gay. I'm Rob Lovelace, and today we're diving into the history of queer media representation, where it started, how it evolved, and why it still matters today. Now, for most of modern media history, queer people weren't visible in ways that felt real or affirming. However, early queer coding in film hints goes all the way back to 1895, when two men danced together in a film that's often called The Gay Brothers. It was a moment that was subtle enough to avoid scandal, but bold enough to unsettle audiences who weren't used to seeing men behave that intimately on screen. By the 1920s and 30s, filmmakers began slipping in more explicit moments, like the first same-sex kiss in 1922's Manslaughter, and Marlene Dietrich famously kissing a woman in 1930's Morocco. Now, these portrayals weren't exactly celebrations of queer identity, but they were very early cracks in the wall of heteronormativity. After World War II, though, portrayals took a much darker turn. Throughout the late 40s and 50s, queer-coded characters were often written as villains, deviants, or tragic figures, which reflected a culture steeped in fear, moral panic, and rigid gender expectations. And unfortunately, this negative framing persisted well into the 1960s. But everything finally shifted in 1969 with the Stonewall riots, which pushed LGBTQ+ issues into mainstream awareness. And at this time, Hollywood began to recognize queer people not only as a marginalized community, but also as a potential viewing audience. And so the 1970s introduced films like The Boys in the Band and TV episodes from shows like All in the Family, which featured one of television's first openly gay characters. However, the 1980s brought another setback. The rise of conservative fundamentalism and the HIV/AIDS crisis made studios wary of sympathetic queer characters. And so, in many cases, queerness was portrayed as something to mock or fear. Still, some films like Parting Glances in 1986 and Longtime Companion in 1989 tackled the realities of AIDS head-on and helped shift public perception. Then came the 1990s, which is often seen as a turning point or a gay renaissance. During this time, queer characters began appearing more frequently on mainstream television shows like Beverly Hills 90210, Friends, and Ellen. These all aired landmark episodes involving queer storylines, including the first lesbian wedding on US TV and Ellen DeGeneres' historic on-air coming out. Then, in 1998, Will and Grace debuted as the first US primetime sitcom with openly gay main characters. And while it wasn't perfect, it did open the door for more direct representation. And in 2000, Queer as Folk pushed boundaries even further with storylines about sex, relationships, addiction, and community, which offered a level of visibility that had never been seen on American television before. And while these shows were certainly groundbreaking, they weren't fully inclusive. Most centered on white, cisgender gay men and leaned into stereotypes that didn't reflect the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community. Fortunately, in recent years, we have seen inclusive characters appear across genres, with more trans and non-binary characters being portrayed by actors who also share those identities. So progress is happening, slowly but steadily. And while the work isn't over, the journey from queer-coded characters and tragic tropes to multidimensional leads shows just how far we've come. Because representation doesn't just reflect culture, it ultimately shapes it. And so every step toward authentic, diverse portrayals helps build a world where queer people can see themselves fully and unapologetically. So if you want to learn more about the evolution of queer media representation, check out the podcast episode and blog post linked below. And remember, every day is all we have, so you gotta make your own happiness.